Hey everyone, I want to share a very special story with you. It's actually a written work by Christine Miserandino. She wrote something called the Spoon Theory. And the Spoon Theory is something that most people with chronic illness come across at some point. And it's an analogy that enables one to communicate the experience of living with a chronic illness, fatigue, pain, regardless, to somebody who may have a difficult time understanding what it's like for us each moment. My best friend and I were in the diner talking. As usual, it was very late, and we were eating French fries with gravy. Like normal girls our age, we spent a lot of time in the diner while in college, and most of the time we spent talking about boys, music, or trivial things that seemed very important at the time. We never got serious about anything in particular, and spent most of our time laughing. As I went to take some of my medicine with a snack, as I usually did, she watched me with an awkward kind of stare, instead of continuing the conversation. She then asked me out of the blue what it felt like to have lupus and be sick. I was shocked, not only because she asked the random question, but also because I assumed she knew all there was to know about lupus. She came to doctors with me. She saw me walk with a cane and throw up in the bathroom. She had seen me cry in pain. What else was there to know? I started to ramble about pills and aches and pains, but she kept pursuing and didn't seem satisfied with my answers. I was a little surprised, as being my roommate in college and friend for years, I thought she already knew the medical definition of lupus. Then she looked at me with a face every sick person knows well. The face of pure curiosity about something no one healthy can truly understand. She asked what it felt like, not physically, but what it felt like to be me, to be sick. As I tried to gain my composure, I glanced around the table for help or guidance, or at least to stall for time to think. I was trying to find the right words. How do I answer a question I never was able to answer for myself? How do I explain every detail of every day being affected and give the emotions a sick person goes through with clarity? I could have given up, cracked a joke like I usually do, and changed the subject. But I remember thinking, if I don't try to explain this, how could I ever expect her to understand? If I can't explain this to my best friend, how could I explain my world to anyone else? I had to at least try. At that moment, the spoon theory was born. I quickly grabbed every spoon on the table. Hell, I grabbed spoons off the other tables. I looked at her in the eyes and said, "Here you go. You have lupus." She looked at me slightly confused, as anyone would when they are being handed a bouquet of spoons. The cold metal spoons clanked in my hands as I grouped them together and shoved them into her hands. I explained that the difference in being sick and being healthy is having to make choices or to consciously think about things when the rest of the world doesn't have to. The healthy have the luxury of a life without choices, a gift most people take for granted. Most people start the day with an unlimited amount of possibilities and energy to do whatever they desire, especially young people. For the most part, they do not need to worry about the effects of their actions. So for my explanation, I used spoons to convey this point. I wanted something for her to actually hold, for me to then take away, since most people who get sick feel a loss of a life they once knew. If I was in control of taking away the spoons, then she would know what it feels like to have someone or something else, in this case lupus, being in control. She grabbed the spoons with excitement. She didn't understand what I was doing, but she's always up for a good time, so I guess she thought I was cracking a joke of some kind, like I usually do when talking about touchy topics. Little did she know how serious I would become. I asked her to count her spoons. She asked why, and I explained that when you are healthy, you expect to have a never-ending supply of spoons. But when you have to now plan your day, you need to know exactly how many spoons you're starting with. She counted out 12 spoons. She laughed and said she wanted more. I said no, and I knew right away that this little game would work when she looked disappointed, and we hadn't even started yet. I've wanted more spoons for years, and haven't found a way yet to get more. Well, I should say. I also told her to always be conscious of how many she had, and not to drop them, because she can never forget that she has lupus. I asked her to list off the tasks of her day, including the most simple. As she rattled off daily chores or just fun things to do, I explained how each one would cost her a spoon. When she jumped right into getting ready for work as her first task of the morning, I cut her off and took away a spoon. I practically jumped down her throat. I said, "No, you don't get to just get up. You have to crack open your eyes and then realize that you are late. You didn't sleep well the night before. You have to crawl out of bed. And then you have to make yourself something to eat before you do anything else, because if you don't, you can't take your medicine. And if you don't take your medicine, you might as well give up all your spoons. For today and tomorrow too." I quickly took away a spoon as she realized she hadn't even gotten dressed yet. Showering cost her a spoon just for washing her hair and shaving her legs. Reaching high and low that early in the morning could actually cost more than one spoon, but I figured I'd give her a break. I didn't want to scare her right away. Getting dressed was worth another spoon. I stopped her and broke down every task to show her how every little detail needs to be thought about. You cannot simply just throw clothes on when you're sick. I explained that I have to see what clothes I can physically put on. If my hands hurt that day, buttons are out of the question. If I have bruises that day, I need to wear long sleeves, and if I have a fever, I need a sweater to stay warm, and so on. If my hair is falling out, I need to spend more time to look presentable, And then you need to factor in another 5 minutes for feeling badly that it took you 2 hours to do all this. I think she was starting to understand when she theoretically didn't even get to work and she was left with 6 spoons. I then explained to her that she needed to choose the rest of her day wisely, since when your spoons are gone, they're gone. Sometimes you can borrow against tomorrow's spoons, but just think how hard tomorrow will be with less spoons. I also needed to explain that a person who is sick always lives with the looming thought that tomorrow may be the day that a cold comes, or an infection, or any number of things that could be very dangerous. So you do not want to run low on spoons, because you never know when you will truly need them. I didn't want to depress her, but I needed to be realistic, and unfortunately, being prepared for the worst is a part of a real day for me. We went through the rest of the day, and she slowly learned that skipping lunch would cost her a spoon, as well as standing on a train or even typing in her computer too long. She was forced to make choices and think about things differently. Hypothetically, she had to choose not to run errands so that she could eat dinner that night. When we got to the end of her pretend day, she said she was hungry. I summarized that she had to eat dinner, but she only had 1 spoon left. If she cooked, she wouldn't have energy to clean the pots. If she went out for dinner, she might be too tired to drive home safely. Then I also explained that I didn't even bother to add into this game that she was so nauseous that cooking was probably out of the question anyway. So she decided to make soup. It was easy. I then said, it's only 7 p.m., you have the rest of the night. But maybe end up with 1 spoon so you can do something fun, or clean your apartment, or do chores. But you can't do it all. I rarely see her emotional, so when I saw her upset, I knew that maybe I was getting through to her. I didn't want my friend to be upset, but at the same time, I was happy to think finally, maybe, someone understood me a little bit. She had tears in her eyes and asked quietly, Christine, how do you do it? Do you really do this every day? I explained that some days were worse than others. Some days I might have more spoons than most. But I can never make it go away, and I can't forget about it. I always have to think about it. I handed her a spoon I'd been holding in reserve. I said simply, I have learned to live life with an extra spoon in my pocket in reserve. You always need to be prepared. It's hard. The hardest thing I've ever had to learn is to slow down and not do everything. I fight this to this day. I hate feeling left out, having to choose to stay home or to not get things done that I want to. I wanted her to feel that frustration. I wanted her to understand that everything everyone else does comes so easy, but for me, it is 100 little jobs in one. I need to think about the weather, my temperature that day, and the whole day's plans before I can attack any one given thing. When other people can simply do things, I have to attack it and make a plan like I'm strategizing a war. It is in that lifestyle, the difference between being sick and healthy. It is the beautiful ability to not think and just do. I miss that freedom. I miss never having to count spoons. After we were emotional and talked about this for a while longer, I sensed that she was sad. Maybe she finally realized. Maybe she realized that she never could truly and honestly say that she understands. But at least now she might not complain so much when I can't go out to dinner some nights, or when I never seem to make it to her house. And she always has to drive to mine. I gave her a hug when we walked out of the diner. I had the one spoon in my hand and I said, "Don't worry. I see this as a blessing. I have been forced to think about everything I do." Do you know how many spoons people waste every day? I don't have room for wasted time or wasted spoons, and I choose to spend this time with you. Ever since this night, I have used the spoon theory to explain my life to many people. In fact, my family and friends refer to spoons all the time. It has been a code word for what I can and cannot do. Once people understand the spoon theory, then they seem to understand me better. But I also think they live their life a little differently too. I think it isn't just good for understanding lupus, but anyone dealing with any disability or any illness. Hopefully, they don't take so much for granted, or their life in general. I give a piece of myself in every sense of the word when I do anything. It has become an inside joke. I've become famous for saying to people jokingly that they should feel special when I spend time with them, because they have one of my spoons. This very powerful and beautifully written work gives a voice, a perspective, and an insight into how one experiences life with a disabling chronic illness of some kind. While the author has lupus, obviously it applies to anyone experiencing any form of chronic fatigue, chronic pain, chronic illness, or some sort of physical disability. I wanted to share this because I recently learned that somebody I care a great deal about also struggles with a chronic debilitating illness and hadn't heard of this spoon theory yet. So I will share this on both of my channels, because I know both communities will probably appreciate it a lot. And yeah, it's something to think about. You know, if you have a friend with a chronic illness that doesn't make it to planned events, or cancels a lot, or you always have to go see them, it's not personal. They're probably just not having any spoons at that time, you know? So, something to consider. I hope this touched you. And, yeah. I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Much love and be well.